Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Today's hearing is another installment in what I'm thinking of as a series of non-antitrust hearings. And because my Republican colleagues seem so confused on the subject, I think a basic primer on what antitrust means may be in order. The Supreme Court has compared the antitrust laws to the Magna Carta of free enterprise. They're as important to the preservation of economic freedom in our free enterprise system as the Bill of Rights is to the protection of fundamental personal freedom. Robust antitrust enforcement is vital for everyone in American society, from consumers to workers to innovators to citizens. Antitrust is fundamentally about making sure the marketplace is an open and fair terrain for companies to innovate and compete. Now, like Donald Trump, our GOP colleagues seem to think that antitrust is about Congress and the president picking business favorites to help and punishing business companies they disfavor. But that's got nothing to do with antitrust, free markets, or fair competition. That's just gangster state economics. That's how a business operates in authoritarian societies. Our colleagues accuse two proxy advisors, ISS and Glass Lewis, of colluding to advance a progressive agenda when they make recommendations to their clients in advance of shareholder meetings. Well, of course, on the antitrust subcommittee, we should be concerned about collusion in the market. As Justice Scalia warned, the supreme evil of antitrust is collusion. That's Verizon versus Trinco. Collusion between competitors with the intent to fix pricing is per se illegal. So you'd think that if our colleagues were going to use their bully pulpit to charge two companies with the supreme evil of antitrust, they would come armed with mountains of compelling, unassailable, ironclad evidence. But even their own witnesses are not alleging collusion. It reminds me of when the Oversight Committee had an impeachment hearing against President Biden in the last Congress, and none of their expert witnesses could identify evidence of impeachable high crimes and misdemeanors, and said they couldn't find the sufficient quantum of evidence. And it's not like my colleagues haven't been warned. The Supreme Court has gone out of its way to explain, quote, an allegation of parallel conduct and a bare assertion of conspiracy will not suffice to constitute an antitrust violation. But that's exactly what our colleagues are doing here. They're making allegations based on the independent market actors sometimes taking parallel positions and then asserting collusion without any proof. And I don't believe that there's even an assertion of price fixing going on. Now, you might chalk this up to just confusion about antitrust law and an innocent mistake, but our colleagues are using these allegations to intervene in and distort the market and to target ideas and actors they simply disfavor, they don't like. They did this last Congress by targeting carbon-conscious investors for daring to use their rights as shareholders to push oil companies to invest in renewable fuel and position these companies to be more competitive in the face of the pervasive threat of climate change, a global emergency that obviously will have a direct effect on the bottom line of fossil fuel companies. But now the majority wields this same empty theory of antitrust harm against proxy advisors. Why? Simply because these companies help shareholders, including those committed to responsible investing, maximize their rights as part owners of publicly traded companies. Antitrust collusion is now the all-purpose GOP name for any market activity or commercial or political speech that they disagree with. The proxy advisors are plainly responding to a marketplace demand. If they weren't, they wouldn't be in business. They are responding to the needs and the requests of their customers. There's an increased appetite among shareholders to invest responsibly. Some don't want to invest in businesses contributing to climate change or to gun violence. Some don't want to invest in companies doing business with Iran or Russia or other repressive countries. These investors, proxy advisors' clients, want to exercise their rights as shareholders to push for changes to corporate governance and policy in the companies where they own shares. They've got every right to do so. Proxy advisors like ISS and Glass Lewis go through hundreds and thousands of pages of proxy materials and give their customers their independent assessment of shareholder proposals, helping them decide whether to support or oppose them. Their only role is to provide information to their clients to enable them to exercise their rights. These companies have every right to issue their assessment of these proposals. It's protected as commercial speech, just as their clients have a shareholder right to propose, consider, and vote on them. And to be clear, the issues they're called to evaluate are not just progressive shareholder initiatives. True, my colleagues seem worked up about shareholder initiatives that call for things like an audit of child labor practices in the meatpacking industry or an assessment of working conditions in commercial warehouses that have an extraordinary rate of workplace injuries. But the exercise of shareholder rights is not and has never been a one-sided partisan exercise. Over the past several years, there's been record growth in shareholder proposals from conservative groups, like the proposal at Disney to demand that the company sever its ties with the Human Rights Campaign and with different kinds of gay and lesbian policies. They've got every right to do that. That proposal failed, just like many progressive shareholder proposals fail. And even if it had succeeded, let me remind you that these proposals are entirely non-binding. They can give expression to shareholder concerns of the right, the left, or the center, but they can't force a company to do anything at all. So what's the real problem here? Why are we repeating a hearing that the Financial Services Committee just had at the end of April? Why are we concerning ourselves with supposed conflicts of interest when the SEC has already addressed them with rules proposed under Trump and kept under Biden? We're here because it seems the Trump administration doesn't seem to believe in allowing voters to be informed. Instead, they're making it harder for voters to learn about the issues and tougher for voters to cast their ballots, especially when they're likely to disagree with them. Shareholder rights, like citizen rights, are protected by law. This empty theory of antitrust harm infringes on the free market, on the rights of shareholders, and on the ability of shareholders to be informed about what companies are doing. Antitrust should not be used to censor political or commercial speech, to distort markets, or to disenfranchise shareholders. And this is censorship masquerading in the language of antitrust analysis. I thank my colleagues, and I yield back to you, Mr. Chairman.